The Fire and Sunset Soiree sailing is one of the shortest sailings of Virgin offer, but despite that, I gave it one of the highest rankings I possibly could score any sailing in my general ranking video. And in today's video, I'm going to go through all the ports and information you're going to need in order to make sure that you have as great a time as I had, if not better. All that up next. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to our next adventure with me, Jason. And yes, believe it or not, this sailing was actually the first cruise I ever went on, not just with Virgin Voyages, but ever. And so it holds a very special place in my heart, and I want to make sure I can tell you everything that you're going to need to know in order to have a fantastic time and nothing but smooth sailing ahead. So before we dive into the ports, let's first quickly go through a general overview as to what makes this cruise so special. Now, as mentioned, this is one of the shortest sailings of Virgin offer. However, there's an upside to this, especially to those who want to try Virgin Voyages for the first time, seeing as usually shorter sailings cost the least in total. So if that's you, or you just want a quick getaway and to have a lot of fun, this is an amazing sailing. Number one, it leaves from Terminal V, which is Virgin Voyages' home port, which means you're going to have their ideal setting for both the embarkation and disembarkation process. Not to mention, it stops at Bimini, which is where the Virgin Voyages Beach Club is, and that is awesome and tons of fun. So this is going to definitely be an amazing cruise, especially if this is your first time with Virgin Voyages. Now, something we do have to be aware of, however, is that because it's only 4 nights and Virgin has 6 premium dining restaurants, that means you reasonably will only be able to experience 4 out of the 6 when it comes to dinner. So make sure you do your research and decide which ones it is that you want to eat at and on which nights. And by the way, if you haven't, I have a great video that will help you secure 100% of all your dining reservations, which I'll put somewhere above. Now, let's get started on talking about the ports. So for the first port, I'm actually going to let myself from the past tell you all about it. So without further ado, I introduce you to me. So the first port we're going to actually be talking about is Port Miami. You see, Virgin Voyages typically offer an early luggage drop-off at Terminal V, their home port, where you'll be leaving from. However, because it's early luggage drop-off, that means it's going to be starting long before your check-in time probably begins. So how do you sort of balance out going to do this early and then also the hassle of having to get there and go and do something else because there's nothing to do at the port? Well, really simply put, Virgin offer a free of charge shuttle that will pick you from the terminal and take you all the way to the Bayside Marketplace, which is west of the terminal. This is an outdoor mall. It's really lovely. There's plenty of places to get something to eat or drink in the meantime, or do some last minute shopping. But more importantly, and something to make you aware of as a bonus tip, about 5 minutes west of Bayside Marketplace is a CVS. So if you forgot or intentionally decided to leave sunscreen as something to purchase only once you landed in Miami, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to head over to the CVS, buy up that sunscreen, get yourself maybe a bottle of wine or two for your cabin, and any other sundries that you may have forgotten or on purpose left to purchase once in Miami. And then just check with the driver what time and from where they'll be picking up everybody in different intervals in order to get back to the ship. Remember, you're here for the cruise on the ship, right? Not to go to Bayside Marketplace. All right, now that we're done at the port of Miami, we're sailing to our very first port, which is going to be Key West, Florida. Now, Key West, in my opinion, is absolutely awesome. It's a really fun and quirky place, which is just brimming with things to do. And having said that, I strongly recommend that you don't book any excursion, whether it's through the ship or some third party. There are just so many things to choose from in Key West, and all you need to do is just get there. So as long as you know what it is or where it is, you just need to get yourself there, and the rest is history. So let's talk about some of the top recommendations I have for Key West, including many things which I did on my stop there. Now, please be aware, this is in no particular order, and by the end of this video, I will make sure to put up on the screen a sort of map and guideline as to sort of an efficient path that you could take to make sure that you get the most out of your time there. But moving on to all these recommendations that I have for you. Number one is going to be key lime pie. Key lime pie comes from the Florida Keys. So if you're in Key West, you definitely shouldn't be allowed to legally leave without having had key lime pie. And the fact that this isn't illegal is to your benefit for now. You're quite patriotic. This will be a fantastic place for you to go visit, and that is the Truman Little White House. It is a wonderful place that was turned into a sort of little White House, as the name goes, by none other than President Harry Truman. It's full of a rich amount of history and even occasionally is still used by the presidents and governments of the US today. Aviation nerds, you probably are going to want to go straight to first flights. This is the former HQ of Pan Am, the famous and sadly now bankrupt airline from the US. So if you've seen Catch Me If You Can, here we are. Whilst not a singular place in of itself, it is one street, and that is the infamous Duval Street. There are just tons of bars and restaurants and a whole bunch of shenanigans going on the street. So at some point, you're going to make sure that you're going to go down this road and just experience it for yourself. Another really quirky thing about Key West is that it's also where you can find the start of North 1 and Mile 0 of the US roads. Now, just some things to be aware of when you're going on Duval Street is that there are, like I mentioned, tons of restaurants and bars for you to frequent. However, one of them, which you may or may not be a fan of, is I think the very first Margaritaville. So if you're at Parrot Head and you want to go check out the very first Margaritaville that opened up by Jimmy Buffett, it's along Duval Street. Then of course we have the home turn museum of probably one of Key West's most famous residents, and that is Ernest Hemingway. Not to mention his ever so popular and famous and very real cats that have 6 toes. The most famous photo op in all of Key West is going to be the southernmost point of continental USA. Quick thing though, just to be aware, it isn't actually the southernmost point of continental USA. That's in a army base or naval base that's nearby. However, that's obviously closed to the public. So in terms of pedestrian or civilian purposes, that's the place you need to go to. Now, in terms of getting this photo without wasting time, because believe it or not, this is very popular and people will queue up for hours to get their photo in front of it, I just simply went and stood a bit to the side and took a photo and angled it that no one was in my way. And I'll insert it somewhere here. That way you save yourself time, you do get your photo, and you can move on and enjoy your day. And then of course you're in the Conch Republic, so why would you go there if you're not to try some of their seafood, in particular the conch fritters? Now there's a very famous and well-known spot, which is the Conch Republic Seafood Company. This, by the way, for those of you who are currently watching Bad Monkey, is the very same restaurant that is featured throughout the series. Another very popular place to go and grab a drink or something to eat is going to be Sloppy Joe's. So if you want to save your eating and drinking for a little later, then you can head there just before heading back to the ship. Or alternatively, if you really want to start your day out strong, you can probably head there so long as they're open first thing off the ship. And now as we leave the Garden of Eden, that is Key West, we head on a sea day before making our way to the beach club at Bimini. Just before I move on to Bimini, a small thing from my side is that many people watch my videos and come back, but they forget to subscribe. So if you don't mind just taking a brief second of your time to hit the subscribe button, and of course, if you've enjoyed this video, to please give it a thumbs up and comment in below if there's anything maybe you want to recommend to others or something that you found very useful about it so far. Anyway, I really appreciate that. Thanks a million. Back to Bimini. Let's talk logistics. If you're sailing with Virgin Voyages, number one, they will organize and arrange for you throughout the day a tram that will take you from the ship all the way to the beach club. Now, just to be aware of the following 2 things. If you're a rock star, there'll be a separate tram for you should you wish to use it, and it is direct, as far as I recall, to the beach club. For everyone else, or for the rock star who just missed their tram, you can of course join the regular tram that is going to go to the beach club, but it will stop at where the excursions take place, as well as the casino, seeing as this is an arrangement between Virgin Voyages and Resorts World Bimini, which pretty much own the entire island. Virgin Voyages Beach Club at Bimini essentially acts as an extension of the ship, but on land. You see, your wristband will work whilst you're at Bimini's Beach Club. Not only that, the Wi-Fi will work, as well as any other perks you may have from being on the ship. So for examples, rock stars, instead of having Richard's Rooftop, you have Richard's Retreat. Now, some tips that I have for Bimini, so listen up very carefully. Number one, if you are a rock star, just be aware that the only difference really between you and other guests on Virgin Voyages is that your area is a shaded seating area with its own bar, and you will get the exact same food as everyone else. The only difference is that you can order it and be served at tableside. Now, for everybody else, and rock stars included, again, I strongly recommend that you try and get there somewhat early so you can easily grab a nice seat on the west side close to the pool if you prefer to finally swim in a pool, seeing as you've been denied nothing but a pond on the ship throughout the sailing. Sorry, it's a pond. It's way too small to call that a pool. And that X thing, I have no idea what it is. Now, when the music gets maybe a bit too loud for you as well, if you're like me, I highly recommend you then take this opportunity to shift towards the beach. Remember, there are plenty of lounges, and if the weather's really good, this is going to be one of the most beautiful beaches you've probably ever been at. For those of you who are considering renting a cabana, I personally would recommend against this. One, I just think it's overpriced and a real waste of money. You could rather go and spend that on, I don't know, bidding for an upgraded cabin or just almost anything else. Because at the end of the day, I have always found that there's more than enough seating at the beach club. Last but not least, let's talk about the food. Now, the food at the beach club at Bimini, if I had to be honest with you, I wouldn't say it's unbelievable. Don't expect your typical dinner restaurant style quality. However, I would say it's probably one step up from the galley, so I guess that's a plus. Something I didn't mention, which was the shore excursions. Now, in terms of things to do on land other than the amazing beach club, which again is free and awesome and just a fantastic thing to do if you want to do something, you can of course go and be more adventurous, and something that I would strongly recommend you do if you don't just want to do the beach club or you're tired of the beach club because you've been here before, is go and do one of the many snorkeling or scuba diving activities that are offered, namely the snorkeling with sharks and the shipwreck. There are different service providers. However, the first time that I ever did it was with Virgin Voyages, so you can obviously use them. I think they just use Resourceful Bimini anyway, but shop around and see what appeals to you. It's a lot of fun. And that is it for us and the Fire and Sunset Soiree. Again, this sailing was such a special one to me. It was the very first one I ever went on, not just with Virgin, but with anyone ever, and I had an absolute blast. So much so that my next sailing that I ever booked was double that amount of time. That doesn't mean you shouldn't book this because you're going to want to go on a longer one. It just means that it's so good that when it's over, you're going to wish it lasted longer. But I feel like that's with any awesome vacation, don't you? Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.